Good morning, baseball fans, and welcome back to Dan's Vintage Baseball PC. Do not be fooled by that fancy name. It's just me and some friends talking about baseball cards. So, a little bit of a change of plan programming wise. We were supposed to record the Ernie Banks episode last weekend and air it this week, but my guests were inconvenienced by a hurricane, and that we needed to move that recording to next weekend, or not, I'm sorry, next month. So, no guests this week, but 2 weeks from now, I have two different guests that I'm going to be recording shows with. I'll mention them during the show today. But I wanted to highlight some activity I've had in the hobby since the Cleveland National. That'll include two different types of cards. One is cards that I've acquired through auctions or eBay or trades or whatever. And the other is the White Plains show, which was yesterday. I did the Friday afternoon, 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock seating, or not seating, but that was the early show for what's called the East Coast National in White Plains. But to distinguish it from the actual national, I'm just going to call it the White Plains show. Is it a national show? Yeah, kind of. I mean, Stan Locke is there, and he's from Ohio, and Ash is there, and he's from Texas, and there were some dealers, Paul from Rhode Island. So it's a bit of a national thing. But for the most part, the dealers were primarily the standard East Coast guys you see at all the shows on the East Coast. But so I went there 3 o'clock yesterday. Since the Fanatics Fest was happening in west side of Manhattan at Javits Center, I expected that there were not going to be a lot of Pelican cases and a lot of kids, but I was wrong. I mean, it was actually a really good crowd in White Plains. I think the idea is that it's mostly, collectors, whereas the Fanatics Fest is more sort of hobby influencers and the such, and people interested in meeting their sports heroes as opposed to buying cardboard with their sports heroes on them. So I had a good show. One very, very huge pickup that I'll get into, but a couple of pictures first. Let's do some pictures. So Heritage Auctions was there, of course, and they showed off this collection of Babe Ruth cards that are going to be in their next auction. A couple of red Gowdy, actually 3 red Gowdies. There's a U.S. Caramel, and I'm not sure what the strip card is on the far right. And then there's a whole bunch of caramel cards on the bottom. So just thought I would take a picture of this rather impressive Babe Ruth collection. They also had these two items. One is the 33 Gowdy Nap La Jolla, which was the story is that it was not really issued with the gum, and you had to write in, and there was a complaint because they kept one card, so kids would keep buying, etc. It's a long story, but there's Nap, and that card is estimated at 200,000. I'm sorry, that's the estimate, 200 to 300,000. And to the right of that is a 49 Bowman signed by Jackie Robinson. So I thought those two items were pretty cool. I saw and held an item that I have never actually seen in person before and never held before, because apparently it says Pop 4. I talked to the dealer. It's a Pop 4 in terms of PSA, but it said that there are somewhere between 6 and 13 of these in existence in the world. This is a signed Thurman Munson rookie card. A lot of them are signed like this one, ballpoint pen. Dealer wanted 10,000, which is actually not a bad deal. I saw, I think, a sale of this go for about 13,000. So this, he took it out of the case. The dealer's name, what did I do with this card? Oh, here it is. Dealer's name, this is not his name, but Abe Stark, who was a famous clothier who advertised with the Brooklyn Dodgers. Abe Stark's Cards, Tampa and Sioux Falls. So if you look up on the internet, Abe Stark Cards, you can find him. Incredibly nice gentleman. Like I said, let me hold this I don't want to use the G word, but gold card. Let's put it that way. So maybe someday. But we'll come back to this signed 1970 tops. We'll come back to this issue, but for now, just adoring a card that, like I said, there's only at most 13, as little as 6 of these in the world. And there was one in White Plains. So cards that I got, I did some box diving for set building. So here's 6 new adds to my 52 Bowman set. Oh, really nice condition. And also, I'll tell you, every time I look at these cards, I'm thinking, yeah, it was a pretty good idea to build 52 Bowman. These are a bunch of beautiful cards. Several of them with, you could see the Polo Grounds backdrop. And that sideways card is Joe Adcock, a truly beautiful card. So pretty happy with the 52s there. Also picked up a ton of 67s. What is that, 13? These are not high. I think there's semi-highs, a couple of semi-highs in here, but I need lots of cards throughout the set to keep this one going. So that was a nice little pickup. And then these are all high numbers. Very close to finishing 72 once and for all. I'm down to about 20 cards. For the most part, high numbers, a couple of assorted cards here and there, but I'll finish that set this year. So 3 different sets that I'm building there. I'm going to have on a guest. It's a collaboration with another very well-known and very well-liked YouTube content creator, and we're going to talk about set building, because I've talked about all the different sets that I have, and we did a 48 Bowman thing, we did a 71 Tops, we've done a bunch of other things, and talking about sets and building them, in the Red Heart, and the different years that I've been building the 70 set. So we're going to have a nice conversation about strategies for set building, and not only the things that I do, but also my guest. And I think together we can come up with a pretty good run of different things that you should be looking for when building sets. So the show itself, my first pickup was something I've been looking for a while. I've lost on auctions before. It's the 1932 New York Giants schedule with Carl Hubbell. This is sort of, Carl Hubbell has a couple of earlier cards, but this is sort of referred to as a sort of a rookie card. But it's a great picture of Hubbell. It looks like he's warming up on the sidelines with his stats, and it's a Giants postcard with a schedule. You see these pretty expensive. They're not terribly expensive, but in this condition, I would expect to pay 3 digits for it. I paid half of that, so pretty happy about this. Not sure if I'm going to get it graded, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes too, because SGC is going to put this in a huge holder, which is not really going to fit. But this, if you recall, the Carl Hubbell show was one of the items that I was shooting for there. Picked up another nice 1939 Cincinnati team issue. This is the tragic Willard Hirschberger, who, if I'm not going to talk about it, but if you look him up, you can see why he's a tragic figure. But it's a beautiful catcher card of a set that I love, and I just felt like for $20, who can go wrong? I'll get to my big pick in a few minutes. Got some slabs, more Reggie, PSA 8 on a 81 Fleer sticker. I never even knew that set existed. 8 CSG 8 on Mercer. That's another one. And this, shout out to my friend Craig. Picked up this really nice high-end 1961 Eddie Matthews near mint 7 at a really, really good price for this. So couldn't turn this one down. Beautiful card. Of the great underrated Eddie Matthews. Building Red Heart, picked up a couple more. This was phenomenally cheap. I think this was $35 in a 5 Alvin Dark. The reds are a little harder, I think. This was a little more expensive. This is a 2.5 of Hall of Famer red Shane Dean. So knock 2 more off of the Red Heart set build. So that's leading up to my number 1 card that I got. And so I I do the circle every time I go to a show. I start in aisle one, go up, back, aisle two, up, back, etc. So Ash was in. I started on the right. Ash was in the third row from the right, all the way in the back, which left me with like 4 more rows to do before I saw the whole show. Before I committed to this card that Ash had, and he had 2 of them. One was a very low grade card, and the other feature was a slightly lower grade. Um, but this one went right into the magic zone. A 10 on the auto. The card is called authentic, but it's in very nice shape. So I left Ash. I said, "This is the number I want this at." He said, "You can have it at that number." And then I walked around the rest of the show. Spent a little bit of money here and there, but as you can see, nothing major. And then came back and picked up this monster. 1970 Topps Willie Mays auto grade of a 10. That is the classic Willie Mays signature. I forget, there's a phrase in the business that they use for it. I forget what it's called. But the card is an authentic, which honestly, I don't care what the card grade is. If this card was going to be graded, it'd grade, I don't know, 4 to 5 maybe, but that number doesn't matter. The number that matters is an authentic card, auto 10, Willie Mays 1970 Topps. So check off one of the major cards in this set moving forward. So that was my big pickup. Thank you, Ash. So let's go over a little bit cards that I've picked up since the National, or related to the National. Speaking of autos, this came back. I bought this at the National. Immediately brought it over to CSG for them to grade it. They couldn't get it back to me by the time I was leaving, so I had it mailed. Ozzie Smith got a little blue dot down there, which is why the auto, if you can see that, auto 9. The card was a 4, which is, probably about right. I didn't really care about the grade of the card. So CSJ, beautiful holders, beautiful plastic. The labels are nice. The only problem with this is I don't care about the 4 in the grade of the card. I care about the auto grade. So why is the auto grade so small in terms of the font size? That's something I tweeted at CSG, and they liked it, but they didn't say anything about it. And I think that's a thing that really needs to be corrected on this. But anyway, Ozzie Smith rookie card, autographed, auto 9. Love it. Gonna keep it forever. So while I was away, I had quite a bit of the 1971 Topps action photos. There are 52 of them in the Topps set. I'm down to 6 or 7 left. Didn't get any yesterday. Couldn't find any. What I'm left with is Craig Nettles, who's a little bit expensive. The Bud Harrelson card, which has a cameo by Nolan Ryan, which makes it expensive. And a few others that are just pretty standard players. But I thought it was kind of interesting that out of the 52, 2 of the players are brothers. There's Felipe Alou and Jesus Alou. Felipe Alou played a short amount of time with Oakland. He later ended up on the Yankees, but of course he was with San Francisco and the Braves and I think maybe a couple other teams. Jesus Alou was on San Francisco. He was then on Houston for quite a number of years, and then he ended up with Oakland and ended up on the Mets at one point. So anyway, these 2 guys, brothers, both part of my recent acquisitions of the 71 action. Can't wait to do that show. Like I said, only 6 or 7 left, and besides the Nettles and the Harrelson, everything's pretty standard. Reggie Jackson, 1971. Dell Team stamps at an 8. I think this cost me $30 on eBay. So the Reggie build continues. This is also another eBay. And then the rest are auctions. This was it's the 1947 Tip Top Red Johnny Sane in a 2. I don't know why it was priced $150, I think it was, and then I made an offer, and the offer was accepted. There are versions of this that are $300 on on eBay at an auction that I missed out on a 2.5 that went for like 200 like a year ago. Anyway, beautiful card. Johnny Sane, love this set. There'll be more of these coming on the channel soon. But this is Johnny Sane, the Braves, great Braves pitcher at 47. I think he won 20 games, but in 48, when they won the pennant, he won 24 games and finished second in MVP voting. Got these two cards together. I believe this was Love of the Game auctions. Both graded, not authentics. This Mickey Mantle and this Roger Maris cost me combined less than $100. I saw this card yesterday in a 3 itself for like $150. And this is Mantle. These are 62s. And the reason I picked this up, these are posts, 62 post. Reason I picked this up, it was a lot actually. And of course, adding a Mantle for 2 digits is cool. But this is the one that has on the stats 61 home runs for Maris. And I shout out to Mike, the sports history collector, who was my guest last week in the A's show. But several months ago, he did the 61 Yankees show, and he has a autographed version of this. And the cool part about it, of course, is that I have the 62 tops back there somewhere, where I love the back that has the 61 home runs. But this one has the 61 home runs right on the front. So nice pickup there. Mantle and Maris. Don't have an old Judge card. Didn't have an old Judge card in my collection. Didn't feel like paying for an old Judge card, honestly, because they're expensive. But I found one for under $100, and I'll show you why, because you can barely see it. This was a purchase through Love of the Game auctions. Old Judge Pop Smith is the player. Pop Smith actually has a pretty cool history. He was known as a great fielding infielder, but he couldn't hit to save his life. He played a bunch of years in a bunch of different teams in the 19th century, and ultimately was connected to Boston. But it also has a little writing on the back. But hey, I have an old Judge card, and it cost me less than $100. So what are you going to do? Got this in Golden Auctions. The great should-be Hall of Famer, Cuban pitcher, Adolfo Luque. This is the Nielsen's Chocolate, and that would be my first Nielsen's Chocolate card. So I don't remember what I paid for this, but it was mid-100s. But it's worth it. It's a 3. It's maybe a little bit of a generous 3, but it is Luque, and it is Nielsen's, and it is now in my collection. I talked about the big slabs from SGC, but this one's kind of crazy because I got this collector connection. Scott Russell, who was not at the East Coast National yesterday in White Plains, but he was at the National and a bunch of other shows, and I'm sure he'll be in Philly. But his most recent auction, there's a new one that just started like this week. With a bunch of Clemente stuff, which I would recommend go and take a look at. It's Collector Connection. I'll link down below. But his auction that ended right before that had a whole bunch of full with the tab highest root beer cards. The Maze went for like $2,400. The not Mantle. Aaron was a lower grade, went for like $2,000 or something. This card went for less than $100. It's the Dodger great should-be Hall of Famer Don Newcomb, and it is the full tab. But if you look the size of the slab, it's huge. And I guess the only reason is because this is very long. But also, super old SGC flip here. It's a 5, as you can see. I think a 5 is actually a pretty fair grade for it even these days. I'm thinking about sending it back in, but what the heck. Looks great. It's like a picture frame. Anyway, so my last major pickup was from Love of the Game auctions. Paid up for it, but I paid less than the last time this card sold by a couple of $100. Last time this card sold, it sold as a raw copy at a small auction house for Cuban cards, even though this is not a Cuban card. And it sold for, I don't know, almost $1,000 raw. the person who got it sent it in, and I know it's the same example because I checked the little, little flaws here and there are exactly the same. Sent it in, got a 2.5, and then, which is a good grade for a card like this. And then it ended up, I guess, being consigned to Love of the Game, and it went for several $100s less. Pop 2, Marvin Williams, Toleteros, a 1949-50 Marvin Williams Toleteros. Now, Marvin Williams is perhaps best known as being one of the 3 players who went to Fenway Park in 1945, along with Jackie Robinson and Sam Jethro, for a tryout with the Red Sox, which ended up being kind of a sham. And ultimately, none of the players were signed. None of the players were contacted again. And Robinson kind of really was angry about that, the way that they were sort of hoodwinked into believing that this was a real tryout with the Red Sox. But Marvin Williams was one of the 3 players. He was a fantastic player. The problem for him was that he was just a little older, played in a lot of different leagues all over the world, mostly Mexico, Puerto Rico, Cuba. He did ultimately end up in the minor leagues in the 50s, but by then he was in his 30s, and never made it to the majors. But Marvin Williams is a major historical figure in Negro League Baseball, and here he is in a Toleteros 1949-50 card. There are 2 of these, two graded cards, Pop 2, and really happy that I got this one. Obviously, a huge part of any collection is to get playing days cards of Negro Leagues players, because they're very hard to get, and you usually have to use the out of the country. This is, I believe, a Mexican card. I should have looked that up. But anyway, so those are my nice little set of pickups, a little bit of a report from the East Coast National, and happy to be back on YouTube, and more to come. I can tell you this, besides the set building episode, my other episode that I am recording about a week and a half from now is the a friend of mine who completed the monster set. So he has a complete T206 set, and I'll be showing off some of my T206s. I don't have 500 and whatever the number is. I have about 35. But anyway, so T206 show coming up in a couple of weeks. Set building show. The Ernie Banks show's moved to September. I also have the Gabby Street show is going to be in September, and talking to other people about other shows. So lots coming up. When everybody's back from summer, we should be moving through everything. Oh, I've got an SGC reveal too. Grades didn't pop yesterday, but the certs popped, so it should be getting grades on Monday. And that's a lot of the material that I picked up at the National. So really interested in seeing some of those grades that I estimated here. So anyway, have a good rest of the week. Have a good rest of the weekend, and we'll see you folks next weekend. Thanks.